Yo. Hello. Hello, all. Yeah. It's a tough one. It's a real tough one. Heart's beating pretty fast. And shaken. And I'm here to put this channel down right now. In total. For any and all purposes. Um, and I want to talk a little bit about why. And I think part of this is to be a kind of warning to those that are out there still right now doing this, and to anybody that would approach this movement. Uh, a little description about what you can expect and how you can expect to be treated and what's actually going on around the place. So, I started out from Massachusetts, and my first day was the Chicago Ideal Org opening. And at that point, if you remember, this was, the weekend after Pearl Snappy had held it down so expertly in Austin and showed us all how to do it, showed us all how to resist Scientology with all of the trimmings, with the highest level of security, with the most amount of buy-in from all of the safe pointing that they may have done in the community, from the most amount of money, the most amount of attention, all of the things. So my intention, and stated a bunch of times, was to, after that weekend, travel around and try to find out the nature of this protest and see what worked, what I thought worked, what, was worthwhile to get involved with. See the different methods and modes of protest. And then I went to Denver, and then I went to Austin and met Pearl Snappy, and then I went to Los Angeles and back to Austin and around the place, back and forth. Met most of the major players. Had communication with most of the rest. And at least for me, got a pretty good picture of what was going on. And apart and separate and completely different from any other social justice movement that I had ever been involved in, there was an eerie sense of self-interest and self-promotion that was rife, constant, and seemingly the lifeblood of what was going on. Really. And still is. Seemingly, most of what's going on are a half a dozen highly placed and regarded characters who, as far as I can tell, aren't really moving the process forward in any way. and have used all of the rest of us in aggregate for their content. And that is the game. That's the game on social media. That's, if you're familiar with the work of Marshall McLuhan, that the medium is the message. This medium's message is very, very poor. Very, very poor in spirit. One of the things I find most disheartening is people's, the audience and the creators. And there's a feedback loop between these things, right? The algorithm, the audience, and the creators, you know, however much you give into these forces is as much, I think, you'll be creating stuff like this. But that rather than engaging in trying to inform people, trying to get into the depths of Scientology history or lore to better inform protesters and the audience what it exactly they are facing. Um, the community is devolved into a reality television show, in my mind, for the most part. Now, of course, we still see very positive things happening with people with leading with their heart and doing it, everything that they can and working very, very hard every day to do the right thing. There is that. They are a wonderful, compassionate minority that is generally well weathered from taking hits on all sides, which is generally what you're going to find if you're in the right place doing good things for people. You're going to take it from all sides. Uh, and I don't, before I started this, I didn't think that naming any names is going to be productive, because what I want to talk about are the concepts, because we get wrapped up in the names and the personalities and the loyalty pledges that all of these sides have engaged their audiences in, and you get lost in that fray. And what to me is more important are the things that are flowing through uh, all of us to a degree, the things that are influencing all of us negatively, and me included. I mean, certainly. So, as this, I think, disease within the movement rose, we saw waves of people leave, waves of people lose interest, waves of people leave the street or be bullied off of the street. Um, Waves and waves. And the criteria for acceptable protest, for being accepted in the different areas of this movement became narrower and narrower till we were pretty well siloed in these different camps, pretty well siloed, without a whole lot of hope of coming back together. Now, there were efforts. There were efforts to do this. Pearl Snappy and myself took it upon ourselves last summer to try to put out a whole bunch of fires and bring people together and try to protect a number of people or to be counselors to different people. And we ended up being the unofficial HR department for a portion of this movement for about 2.5 months of last summer. And this would be us getting on the phone with folk at about 10 a.m. and usually not getting off trying to deal with everybody's blow ups and fights and this, that, and the other thing. And very serious stuff, some of it. Uh, yeah, till about 1 o'clock in the morning. And it is chock a block because we desperately wanted to keep this thing together. And we both hoped that at some point this storm of fights and recriminations would subside in the face of the importance of the work that we were all trying to do and the issues at hand, which were the present, future, and also the past destruction of very many human lives by the hands of this cult. And a whole summer passed, and there were some fresh green shoots, and a whole other round of attacks and stuff happened again and again and again and again until now. And the whole time, I found a lot of the movement has had whittled away understanding, patience, compassion, the things to be able to have open arms for new people, to bring them in, to secure them in good standing in this movement, and show them that they have a place. We're showing people that less and less people have less and less of a place. All the time. And something like this can't survive that. Can't survive that. And for me, personally, um, my mental health has been so affected by my attachment to different parts of this and not being able to act that I'm finding that all of the rest of my life is suffering from it. And the way I've been handled by so many people, really, um, has worn me down. And the cost benefit of analysis now is I need to survive, and I have decided that I can't, or maybe probably will not, hanging out here and doing this. And that's a shame. But what I want to say is that I'm not the first and I won't be the last, because this is how the table is laid right now. This is how it is. We're not in the position to actually support people in what is very stressful work. Protest work takes a lot out of you, and it takes, a certain personality to step on the street one time, right? It's not everybody, but, and then to sustain it, to be able to sustain it over a long period of time takes like a lot of forethought and organization and actually giving a damn, meeting people where they're at a lot more than we are. And again, like, I am not outside of this analysis. I've been guilty of parts of this throughout. So I am not guiltless in any way. I'm I'm just not. So but the main thing is, and I think for anybody, yeah, um, if you're in a place where this material or your engagement with it is affecting your life so much that you're falling within like DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for different stuff, as far as having it, mess up, your sleep or your eating, or your employment or your relationships or blah blah blah, for the given periods of time that are contained within them, right? Uh, take stock and take a break. Um, Part of this is me not finding the tools that I need to be able to scrub off all of the things that I've accumulated, all of the perceived slights, uh, all of the things. And, very recently, and for some amount of time, people have been trying to assassinate every little last bit of my character, so that, um, for some amount of time and over again, the effect has been like I don't feel like I have a place here anymore. I feel embarrassed to show up in anyone's chat or to be present with anyone here, um, because I don't want to cause a scene, because, all of uh, just my sullied reputation at the time may pull focus from what I'm actually enjoying people doing, and especially, if they're doing good work. So, for all of those reasons as well, I am putting this down. So, I've intentionally been not looking at the screen and not looking at the chat. And I'm going to go through some of what y'all are saying here. Yeah, yeah. So let's see. Okay, a bunch of things about the sound. Yeah. All right. Well, so yeah, I don't know if any of you heard any of these concepts, but I don't see any of them discussed. Perhaps you're afraid to speak about these things, to be seen to be disloyal in some way or other. I'm not sure. But I think these are important. They're important enough to me to leave. Uh, they're important enough so that we've seen so many other people that we've celebrated and that have done good work leave for similar reasons, under similar pressures. And I just, I hope that at some point, um, this movement gets its head out of its ass and stops cannibalizing itself all the time and underwriting cruelty as much as it does. Because it feels good, like, you know, being an anonymous participant in some social media pig pile. It's what it is. And I mean, I don't I don't know how many people are completely innocent of that, right? You know, I don't know how many. Uh, and again, me included. So, not that it's a non. There are some. There are some that will not be so dirtied, for sure, for sure. Yeah. Why is this happening? This is happening. Um, yeah, I think I explained some of why I think this is happening, but it's the general disorder of the place has made it such that um, I, it's affecting me to the point where I don't believe that I can survive further contact with this movement. Um, I've really tried to put my best foot forward. I've tried to make myself available for any and all purposes, protest, creative, and otherwise. And it doesn't seem that, these things are currently being utilized. So I'm going to gather some wool and try to take care of myself so that I believe that I want to be on this planet because I'm getting mixed messages about existence right now. So, and I have a long history of that. I have a very long history of the mental illness. So, I've been debilitated by my brain attacking myself, which is one of the ways I describe it as, since I hit adolescence. And I've been in the face of non existence by my own hand, by my brain's operation, very regularly. And for extended periods of like acute shit. Um, Living on the dark side of the moon for some amount of time of my life and can speak from that place and have tales of many fellow fallen travelers who are disregarded, thrown away, not taken seriously, treated as crazy. And many of those people I find to be the brightest, best stars, and why we can't have nice things. All examples of that in my memory. And yeah, so this is, this has become very serious for me. This has become that serious for me. And I know what it is. I am a practiced hand with these states of being. And I know when I need to walk away because I'm in danger. And I'm being put in danger, I think, by all of the same forces that I described. The cheapening of everything that we've done, the cheapness that now is rife throughout it. And with it, the kind of callousness, backbiting, salt shaking, constant recriminations from side to side to side to side. That just wastes everyone's brain because there's nothing to be solved there other than personality differences and maybe like some real infantile behavior. Yeah, this is a pretty general, broad-based condemnation of the current state and the state of this movement as I've experienced it since I hit the street. Honestly, I was horrified um, the first day at the real lack of backup and the lack of organization. Um, it was very clear that this was a kind of thing that, without organization, that was more like small group targeted direct action in the level of danger. Uh, because you have no backup, you have no organization, there's no bail fund, there's no lawyer, there's nothing. You've got no buy-in or like real awareness from like the political leaders around you. You got nothing. And what you have against you is like a multi-billion-dollar cult that is bought off the Chicago police. So that's very, very dangerous. Uh, because I mean, there were more cops there than there were us. So, you know. And as I went around the place, I saw the different modes and methods, and I tried to engage with them. And there was then a balance. There was at least solidarity. Um, there was always shit going on, but people getting into this and that, and certainly that in LA. When I went there, I was like, oh yeah, I expect this to be kind of some kind of high school fight, and it was. And so but there wasn't every camp waiting for anything to tear everybody down. And almost all of those people have never been on the street one time. Like, what the hell? It's fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy. It is. I mean, yeah, it's a tragic comedy of sorts. Yeah, Haggis Basher, definitely. But it's like this is if you get into the nonprofit world, if you do kind of volunteer work, if you get into these spaces, you'll find a lot of people who sacrifice a lot, way, way too much of themselves, lose whole portions of themselves to these things. And it's a constant struggle. You have to be aware of it. It sometimes makes family life really difficult. I've known people, kind of lifers that do this work who are like, it's the work and not so much their family at all. And that becomes stressful. I'm not great at socialization. I can't I can't say that I'm a king of that. I'm a horrible hermit, really. Uh, yeah. So because I was trying to take this seriously, like, what amount of like national organization can be done to create the protections, to have the organization, to have a lawyer, right, that would show up when the cops pluck us off the street, especially in Los Angeles, so that you know that cop shop is well aware that they can't just run over all of our civil rights all the time. Um, you know, it's the basics, right? They see somebody coming in with a $5,000 suit saying, my client, this, that, and the other thing. And, for these violations, don't you know that, LAPD, you've been successfully sued, blah 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 blah, you know, and they're like, oh shit, okay, it's expensive. Wow, they they're playing the game, and yeah, you get a different kind of treatment. But so, and there was like a major effort against any kind of messaging like that, um, by certain folk, that any organization on that level and trying to protect the protesters and have a legal or a bail fund or anything, all of these conspiracy theory thingamabobs about, you know, being a group is insane. Has nothing to do with the law. Has everything to do with people misreading articles on social media, um, which is another disease within this movement that I've identified and I despise, which is hear an internet rumor, believe an internet rumor, repeat an internet rumor. And with so many of the audiences being engaged and being encouraged to engage in this kind of sophistry, is well, it's what demagogues do, right? It's the thin end of the wedge. And at that point, you know, they have you. Right. So like criminal enterprises or gangs or, you know, different organizations that are trying to take you into their thrall will have you do like a little transgressive thing first, um, and build it up incrementally. And these these got built up over the months since last summer, starting last summer, to the point where, you know, you had people calling for the very physical harm of very many people back and forth, and the, you know, the legal haranguing of people, this, that, and there. And especially in this environment, people that have been, or we'll say conflict averse, um, will either go like away, or, you know, for the first time in their life, they'll engage in fight, but they'll do it in an unpracticed way. uh, because there is something to fighting. Um, you know, knowing how cruel somebody is, how much control they actually have when like everything's on fire. When the fast bullets are flying, like what kind of a person are you then? And a lot of first timers, like a baby snake, will unload all of their venom sac into you and shoot for the fences. So, yeah, yeah, Twyla Luna. Yeah, thank you. Exactly. No, it's a legal theory that's out there, right? That when it's tested, they're like, we can't possibly do this. I mean, um, because what judges really don't want, they don't want to be reversed. And if it has the smack of being unconstitutional, being reversed on constitutionality is maybe the worst. So that's where protest protections are very, very strong still, as long as we have a judiciary. They're getting weaker and weaker all the time. Those are being chipped away. But yeah, because that argument happened. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, you know, I've been, you know, to these anti-war protests or like whatever, like all these different protests where you'll be given this whole information sheet about like everything that you do, why we're there, what to bring, What, if any, protections are afforded? If we're intended, if we intend to be arrested, somebody was putting forward the idea, oh, good protesters don't get arrested. Ha ha. Like, it's not like nonviolence and not getting arrested are the same thing, even. Like, so many nonviolent protesters, well, we used to do, sit down on the steps or, have them drag you away, right? But then a bunch of municipalities, and it became fashionable to say that, putting your weight on an arresting officer constituted an assault on the officer. And so that went away a little bit. Um, yeah, but that used to be the fucking point. And you'd all show up at a place with all of this information already, and somebody at like a podium or a bullhorn at the gathering place would then refresh you on all of these things. And, if there was a legal number to call, they'd give it out again. And those people weren't RICO'd. That's how all of these things are done. All of them that I know of. So, yeah. So to me, the perpetuation of that message was a thought stopping, an organization stopping method. Because at that point, I don't know, that's like a serious protest movement that you actually have to pay attention to, and that you have to take seriously and have permanent staff. And so you'd have to, make like a nonprofit organization or whatever kind of like corporate structure that you're going to make around this thing, given like whatever the legal constraints that you find yourself in. You try to fit the best thing to the thing, right? So yeah, I enjoyed those too. Thanks. Totally. Yeah, and again, I got two parts into a four-part series of Adam Curtis's The Century of Self, which goes into the history of the public relations and advertising industries and their effects on all of our brains. And I think generally going through all of that material, people are surprised to find some of those mechanisms operating within themselves. And all of that kind of, I guess, got condensed in hippiedom in the 60s to a phrase that goes something like, there's a policeman in your head and he must die. So, in an effort, and I was, going to do some more of that kind of stuff, because it seems as though, to me, that there is a dearth of this kind of knowledge around the place. That leads people to suppose a lot of things that can't possibly be true legally, organizationally, about methods, tactics, just ahistorical takes on protest that have strangled out whole swaths of this thing that were effective, that were shutting down the business operations effectively in more places of this cult. And also a growth trajectory that I don't know, was far more hopeful, I have to say. Um, to me, like I'm saying, I'm facing issues of survival, and in the face of this thing becoming moribund. Oh no, I didn't. I didn't. Let's see. No, I don't read the chat for shit, Pearl. You know that. Let's see. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I know, and I know who I am. But um yeah, I mean, there's some levels of things that I can't countenance. There's some issues in my life that cut so deep uh that I do need to protect my heart and my mind after a time. And uh I'm choosing to see that as a kind of strength right now. Uh, the things that were keeping me from being able to like face taking any kind of a break or push away or end this channel as I'm doing right now. But in the past, like all of those things was the feeling that I'd be like giving up, giving in to all of my detractors, and I've finally realized that is a trap in and of itself, and that I can't ever actually get the rest and actually get the healing without kind of cutting the cord in a really serious way. And so that's what I'm about doing. Yeah, yeah. No, certainly. Um no, the states of mind that I've been experiencing that I can kind of describe in this tone of voice, which sounds comic to me right now. That's why I laughed. Um they're not rational. I know they're not. I'm experienced with them to know that I am not acting rationally at least. Because well, when you lose that, and you're like in crisis, I describe that as going around the corner. You're like now out of sight within your own closed system of information of just all of your hurt and the swirling messages of yeah, for me it's a um, multiple streams of constant racing thoughts that I can't stop. And that's been true again since I've been adolescent. So depression and insomnia because it's I can't shut it off. I haven't been able to. I haven't found a way to do it other than like I don't know, play like 3 hour shows in front of people and then I'm like bone tired or like build a house or something. When I was working construction, I would sleep like the dead. But it was also beating my body apart. So good question. Yeah, and I meant to be specific about this. So I'm going to keep whatever's up here, I think, for a month. And then I'm going to pull it down. So this will remain as um, whatever this was for this amount of time, a journaling of my journey from coast to the middle to coast to middle to all over and getting pretty spun in the process. Um, so, yeah, if folk want to delve into that, if it's, meaningful or whatever, because this is kind of a spur in the moment thing for me. And I just can't deal with this anymore. I can't deal with this being what it is right now. And that's about me as much as it is any of these criticisms. Uh, the criticisms I wanted to put out there because there's some of the things that I think that are external to myself, um, that more people than myself have been experiencing, and more people than myself have been turned away from doing this work by. And I thought that might be helpful. Um, but mainly, anybody having to do this, it will be for their own reasons and their internal stuff, which is, I don't, my thought process is a mystery to myself a lot of the times. So, um, yeah. So I didn't do like a year-end recap or any of that stuff. Um, but feel free to look through the stuff, I guess. Um, yeah, it was during a time, I think, the year anniversary happened around where like it was just like another wave of multi-pronged attacks on my person and character that um, had me fold up like this, and I guess I don't have what it is to not feel this stuff to the bone right now. I don't have the psychological resources to not be an open nerve to these things. Yeah, totally, Dreamscape. Absolutely. Yeah. The, people have come and gone, and for a generation, over 25 years or more, or, even McPherson days. So, and those are all informative. I recommend, yeah, if you haven't, Dreamscape, great idea. There's just such a wealth of information out there and perspectives, and it shows the tail of the tape of how all of these things in waves, these waves of resistance against Scientology have developed and evolved. It's very good for perspective. Um, I was already interested in that stuff, and I'd seen most of it by the time I hit the street for sure. Uh, but there's really so much more. I'm always surprised, like going out there, any of these repositories. Obviously, Mark Bunker's channel for like is a one-stop shop for the. I mean, look at his playlists. It's ridiculous. Uh, how much and how well covered many of those things are. Yeah, Michelle. Um, we were there to support the victims, and that's it. We weren't there to give a news update on any of this stuff. We weren't there to point the finger, to make accusations. We were there to support victims in their cases and to make them feel more safe by having a safe repository for their information if and when they wanted to bring a case. This has been one of the most disgusting episodes in the entire history of the thing and showed me so clearly that people do not understand at all psychologically and are just not curious about victims of these kinds of things. If they had read any of the psychological literature on what it is to be in these places, and you look at the statistics of people that have faced things like this, and if and when, how often they report and how, to whom, what did result should be a surprise to no one. But it was a surprise to so many out of sheer ignorance, out of pig ignorance. further damaging these people by speaking about them in any way, by characterizing their stories in any way, by speaking seriously. Even this is too much at this late date. Total irresponsibility is what I saw in the face of all of that. And again, the people that you will see that made content out of that stuff, you can see them. I mean, I condemn all of it as irresponsible. All of it. It has nothing to do with getting justice. It had nothing to do with protecting the victims. It had nothing to do with protecting their cases. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with people making a point on a salacious episode for content. So, yeah, you know, I've seen a lot of people suffer under the same pig ignorance. Oh, why didn't you go to the cops? Why didn't you this? Why didn't you that? Child victims, family victims, this, that, and the other thing. There are so many ways that cookie crumbles. But if you look at the fucking studies on the stuff, it's clear. This is underreported. This is underreported because of the damage that's done to people, and it's also underreported because of the uncaring, unfeelingness of the people that would take those reports and of the public who would not believe them. All of those people should be ashamed for what they have done and what they continue to do. Yeah. Yeah, people were scared. People were made to be scared. You know, it's a really good way to sell the news. That's what the local news is. Fire, dog bite, famine, explosion. You open up the window, chirp, chirp, chirp. It's a Bill Hicks bit. No, you were made to be afraid by demagogues, by people who would use that moment to sensationalize whatever the fuck. And then the whole idea of the whole thing just it becomes captured by the personalities who are doing the telling. And then that screws up the story each and every time. That's why you save it for the legal case every time if you actually care about the victims. But this is lost on this community. It's completely a concept that is just unfathomable around here. Thank you for bringing that up. Because that is definitely, this is another, oh, wow. There ain't no shelter here. There ain't there's not a hell of a lot of humanity when the chips are down, when people are a little bit scared, when it gets a little bit salacious, when people are asked to engage in these kinds of loyalty pledges as these people ask you to engage in. And in the anonymity of the internet, then, people will act their worst selves facelessly and without repercussion. Toying with people's actual real lives and in some ways destroying them in very real ways. For what? So yeah. No, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm blown apart, I'm all these things, and I'm not able to fucking handle it. And so I have to go away, I have to gather my wool, I have to do other things. I have to live another life apart from all of this. Thanks for showing up and hearing these words. I hope you take some of this to heart or that it provokes some thought. Maybe not. Go ahead, check out this content for a little bit longer. I think, a little bit after Bastille Day, this will be down. If I'm to be on the internet, it will not be connected to anything connected to this. Be good, y'all.